Warning. This podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone to Violet Everweekly, episode 12, the series on the Our Anime podcast where we talk about Violet Evergarden week by week. And let me tell you right now, if you're one of the people that always complains that I hate the show or something, you should probably turn this off right now because this is the worst episode. Let's just get that out of the way first.
Starting off just with the early criticism, huh?
Yep, starting it off with a bang, I guess. Kind of like how this episode ended with a bang or something. I don't know. That was supposed to be a joke.
Just like Cowboy Bebop.
Just like what?
Never mind.
This is the worst fucking intro. Okay. This week our new guest is Collapsed Block 6.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. And returning is Dr. Whoops.
Hi.
For the 80th time on the podcast. And returning for the second week in a row, Habitat.
Second week in a row, third time.
Yeah. You're really the MVP of this series.
Hey-o, coming back when people need me. That's what I do.
Exactly. And we always need people. I don't know. Should I even mention the hangout? Not the hangout. The fucking sign up sheet. I don't think there's no time left.
Great intro. Absolutely nailed it.
See, I told you this is the worst episode. I wasn't actually talking about the show. I was talking about the podcast. It's the worst episode of the podcast.
Violet Evergarden Everweekly. Where we discuss the podcast every week.
nice meta. That's the April Fool's episode, actually. Alright. Nice. Discord, Twitter. Yeah, that's it. And now the episode. This episode was boring. I didn't like it. What do you guys think? Collapse, what do you think?
I didn't like it either.
I don't really think it's bad, but it is not as good as others as episode 10 or episode 7. It's just fine.
Oh yeah? What did you like about it?
Well, I like as a war history whip, I like the war aspects of it. I kind of understand, for example, the bad guy captain to an extent, until he says that he wants to destroy fucking everything. That's until I said that, oh, he was fine until he said that. So, or also, well, what? Sorry?
Yeah, never go on.
Also to an extent, the captain, where he blames Violet for his brother's death, but he's also taking out how to say it? He's too immature, in my opinion. Like, the train is being hijacked, and he still searches to argue with her, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude, you are about to die. You do something instead of arguing about that. And such.
Yeah, he's a soldier. He shouldn't be, like, bringing his personal business, especially when there are people, who are trying to kill you right in front of you, right?
Exactly.
I mean, to be fair, he did just meet with the person who he's convinced killed his brother. So it may come up. It's not that out of the question, I'd say. Not my biggest problem with the episode, surely.
Actually, it's kind of my biggest problem, I think. Just the fact that, I don't know, Violet's just like, hey, let me help you. And he's like, yeah, fuck off, dude. And I don't know. And I guess the reason why I have trouble with that is because I don't really understand this guy in particular. Like, why is he so... Okay, let me think of that.
He's just a douchebag.
Where did he come from, anyway?
They need an edgelord.
He is an edgelord. And I always knew he was an edgelord, and, I don't know. Like, the whole time I'm just like, why is he so upset about Violet? And I actually do somewhat understand him being just like, oh, you were so close to the Major, but he died when you were still in his care, and that's kind of your fault. And that I can kind of understand. But then when he said, like, you killed the Major.
Yeah, that's...
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And what's annoying is he just kind of comes out of nowhere. We don't think we've seen him before, right?
No, we've seen him a little bit.
Okay, well, not any.
He's just been super passive aggressive.
At least not in a significant role. But I mean, the show has done the whole. Why are you being a rider instead of a warrior? You killed people. You don't deserve to have a happy life and shit. It's done that like in 70 different times, and it just feels so empty now because there's been so many random people that say like, "Oh, why are you doing this? You're a murderer." So it's his whole thing where it's like I'll never forgive you and you can't live a normal life. That's just been done so many times before by this show where it just feels like another empty instance of it with. It just makes him feel shallow to me.
Too much.
Yeah, I feel like they're reusing the same plot point over and over again, and since we already kind of got past that, hearing him like reuse the same words, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But you can obviously see the development in how Violet is acting.
I mean, that's just mostly been this entire episode is just getting back to stuff that has already been mostly resolved. It's just kind of like Violet's arc has been it's been addressed and it's been resolved, and now the show is just trying to go back to that and poke at it and say like, oh, is it still okay or something, or like what if we introduce conflict? Will that be interesting? It's like it doesn't know what to do anymore, so it just starts poking at the idea that Violet might still be disapproved by people, which we already know.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the anime is just kind of like out of ideas, I guess, because actually, taking back what I said earlier, my actual biggest problem with the episode is that I'm just like, what is the point of this episode? This has nothing to do with writing whatsoever, and so far, like, even though it has had a focus on the post-war world, I suppose, it's still like, it's still just been about mostly writing these letters, and Violet growing as a person. And now all of a sudden, she's just on a train fighting people.
Yeah, it turned from a show that's about Violet and her development and letters and her getting over the Major and getting over the whole war stuff, and now they're bringing that back in a sort of attempt to introduce conflict or to have something interesting going on. Which is generally an annoying thing that a lot of shows do, where they, like in the last 3 episodes, they suddenly introduce like a save the world type of big conflict that needs to be resolved when it doesn't really have a purpose or any relevancy to the character arcs. Like same with, I mean, people are going to hate me for putting these 2 shows on the same page, but it's like with Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, where in the last where like in the last 3 episodes,
I fucking wrote Cabaneri in my notes too.
Oh, okay. Where it's just like, oh, in the final 3 episodes, we're going to introduce a big bad guy and have conflict, even though it comes out of nowhere and doesn't really have a purpose. Just having conflict for the sake of having conflict.
Well,
yeah, it felt like. It felt like they were shoehorning in the war at the very end, when the war was always like a side thing. It was always something that Violet looked to the past to explain how she is in the present, but now that it's the focus, it just feels jarring. Like I mentioned in the last episode, last podcast, that for the past few episodes I've actually been crying at the end and I've come to expect it. But since this episode was so different in that it was more focused on war and the past, that when the ending credits rolled, I was like, "Oh, that's it." I was, dropped. I felt a little bit disappointed.
Well, about the war, I think it is a bit understandable because, as I said, I'm a history whip, and when Germany lost the World War, there were many people that simply wanted more war because they were salty about it, and it is the same case here. They were said that they would achieve glory, but they only were defeated. They saw their comrades die, so he wants to start another war to see that glory back again, I think.
I mean, yeah. I'm not saying it's historically unrealistic that people want to have war again, but I mean, why does it need to be in the show? It doesn't really have a purpose outside of the fact that it might, even if it might be realistic. What's the point of it? It doesn't thematically do much for the show, because all it's doing is just repeating the same things that we've seen before Violet's arc was resolved, of people being disapproving of her living a normal life. And I mean, it's just the same thing in a different context, but that doesn't make it a new thing.
I got the theory that perhaps this is the Captain arc, his development or something. Like, he will finally forgive Violet and stop being such an edgelord and stuff like that.
I do think the show will end with something like that. I don't know how good of an ending that would actually be, though. Like, I really have like no expectations for the finale at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing also, because like the climax in episode like 8 already, it was quite good, and I was satisfied with that. And I was like, what's he gonna do next? And doing like 6 more episodes after a climax like that is just going to make everything after it feel underwhelming if you're going to build up another conflict with another climax. Which is what it's doing right now. It's saying for the last 3 episodes we're going to do another conflict thing, where it's suddenly about war with another climax, another ending, and that's going to be the ending of the series, but I don't think it'll ever live up to the climax of Violet's character arc.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's kind of doing this weird thing where it's like a second season that didn't need to happen, you know, where it could have ended earlier and it could have been fine. We didn't need this. This isn't. I mean, the episodic episodes, those were all nice. I'm fine with those. But when it starts introducing a second story arc after the first one has been resolved, that doesn't really need to be there. That it just starts feeling weird and unnecessary to me.
Yeah.
It should. I wouldn't have minded it at all if it was just more episodic episodes, as long as they were good. I'd have liked it more than this shoehorned in war, save the world type arc.
Well, it wasn't even save the world, right? It was just like save my coworker and this one envoy who didn't even talk in the episode.
Yeah, I mean figuratively, where it's trying to go big instead of keeping
right. Of
it's
course,
not
the future of the country rests upon this, right?
It's not longer about Violet. It's about the war, which is kind of a weird direction to take the show in.
And extreme and intense.
Yeah,
I had a good laugh.
What the fuck are these town names now?
Yeah, but yeah, also interesting. I'm still convinced the mayor is alive, and I think that's going to be the big reveal near the end of the series. I'm calling this, and I'm not just, I'm partially just calling it because I've been calling it from the start, but genuinely, I do think that it needs to do something big for the finale, and what does it have left that it can do? It can't do much with Violet's arc that's big or explosive or wowing, so I feel like if it will want to overshadow the previous climax of Violet's arc with something even bigger and even wow, I didn't expect that type of moment. So,
except you are.
Yeah, I am, but I know the show has it set up in a way where it clearly wants you to think that he's dead, but it's never actually concretely confirmed it, which is what irks me. Which makes me think that it wants you to think he's dead, specifically because he's not. So it's kind of, which I don't like. I don't like that the show is clearly trying to set something up just so it can do the different thing and surprise me. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. I don't know if any of you agree with it.
I agree. It'll probably be like one of those Fades of Black, and then you hear Violet say "I love you," knowing full well what it means. You know?
Yeah.
I have no idea if the Major is actually dead and he doesn't show up next episode. I think I'll be a little disappointed, because it's like, okay, well, why did you kind of, not actually close that door and make us all think that maybe possibly it would happen, and instead of just being honest about it. But if he actually is alive, if he does show up, I also don't know if I'll like that either. Because I don't know, I just think it would be so weird, I guess. I think I'd just start laughing if that happened.
Either way...
It's like, oh, this is what they're doing.
Either way, the way the show handles the Major's, well, missing in action, I guess I'll call it, it's just weird. Because if he's dead, then why are you being so vague about it? And if he's not, then why? Why would he still be alive? What's the point? That doesn't thematically work with the show if he's still alive.
It's a red herring to make people think that he might come back when really he's dead all along.
That's some 4D chess. We're going to pretend like we're trying to make you think he's dead, so that you think he's not dead.
So you have the hope in your heart that he might come back, and then at the very end, it's like, no, she just learns to live without him, and he's really dead.
That'd be pretty.
Something I found ironic is that Violet at the start was like, no, I'm not gonna take any more orders, but then she's like, the mayor told me to live, and I'm like, didn't you said you will stop following orders? And it seems weird to me.
Yeah, I think in that case, since she clearly has some sort of attachment to the Major may have, his words might lend greater credence than military orders. But then again, you're right. In the train, she was waiting for the orders from the captain as well.
Yeah, I think that was mostly just not really her needing orders in order to do something, but more just her hoping he'll let her take part in the conflict because she wants to be able to influence it or something. So I don't think that's a weird thing. It's just her not really waiting for orders, but rather just waiting for approval, I guess, more.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was super funny when the captain told her to protect the people in the cabins, and then it may have been the next scene or within a minute we see her punching out the guys at the end of the train, then jumping onto the roof, which was not really protecting as much as it is going on the offense. But
also, the whole sword fight or gunfight on the roof of a train has been done so many times. It's so just be more inspired. Why did it have to be a fight on the roof of a train?
And of course, why didn't they shoot their guns? Why did they all run up to Violet and then engage in melee combat?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's every single show that has this post-war-ish vibe to it. Has that on a train battle where, and it's just so tiring and so overdone. But yeah, what would have been fun if during the battle on the train, just a sign that hangs over the train or a frame or something just hit Violet in the face and she died, and that's the end of the
show. For a second, I thought that's what happened to the burn mark dude. That he came up at some point, and then something happened. I think the captain shot, and then suddenly they were in the tunnel.
Yeah, what was?
And I thought that comic effect happened.
Oh, no, he got hit by. Yeah, that was also near the end of the episode. It was there was a shot, and then the Major jumped in. Sorry, I don't know what they shot something, and then there was it was flashy and not really clear. It was Violet jumped in front of the general guy to protect him, and then he jumped in front of Violet to protect her or something. What was going on there? Because I didn't catch any of that.
The guy who had normally been just super stoic suddenly put on that evil grin and shot a grenade launcher while they were inside a tunnel, which not great.
Was that a grenade launcher? There. Seriously, what the fuck?
I'm pretty sure it was a grenade launcher or a rocket launcher because
exploded.
Yeah, it bounced off of Violet's metal hand and hit the side of the tunnel, and then in one of the scenes you see that her glove got burned off.
Well, I didn't get. I thought it was the face burn guy. He tried to shoot Violet, but then the Major, but not Major. I forgot his name. The captain. He jumped in front of Violet. No, don't shoot her. And then Violet jumped in front of him. No, don't shoot him. So that's how I got it. But I guess there was a grenade launcher involved. So That happened?
It was the Burnmark just got on the train somehow after being kicked off. He was going to shoot the captain, and then I think Violet jumped in front of him, and then the grenade launcher dude came at some point, Demo Man. But yeah, it happened very quickly. I agree with you.
It would have been awesome if her arms would have been blown up with the explosion.
Yeah, it would have been a nice little like aside similar to what happened.
That's such a slapstick thing, like, again!
And then she could use it like a sword, a mace, and then all that hand-to-hand combat would come. It's getting
cool.
too action-oriented.
That's literally hand-to-hand combat. If you grab your own detached limb with your other arm and then hit people with that.
Metal. Literally
It's
metal.
only stupid if it doesn't.
Literally metal, right?
Yeah. So that happened. I mean, did anything else interesting happen this episode? Well, why were Ketelia and the mailman guy there?
They were going to the ceremony for the peace signing.
Yeah, a sign of peace.
Why did they
don't
need
know.
to be there?
I have no idea.
I guess just to introduce stakes, like, oh, people I know are on this train.
Probably,
maybe
yeah.
maybe to,
He didn't want him to die.
Maybe to sell their business. Like, hey, I run a letter company, come do it, or something.
During a peace signing.
At a peace ceremony, I want to sell my
Could
business.
you just like during the U.S. Congressionally, Mark Zuckerberg walks in, like, "Hey guys, do you know about Facebook?
How about Instagram?
New face
Follow us on
filters."
Twitter at Tokyo Podfathers.
Yeah. So I hope they do kind of like. I forgot the word, but like explain why they're on the train, because I don't get it. Why do they need to be at a peace signing? I mean, Ketelia, okay, she might be like the representative of the company, but why does the mailman need to be there?
I don't know.
You know, talking about information, I saw in the 4chan thread that many people were triggered when in the beginning someone said, "as you may know," because that is like the worst way to begin an info dump.
Yeah, the exposition.
Oh yeah, That's like that immediately set me off. I'm like, this episode's gonna fucking suck, isn't it?
Yeah, and like they said, "as you may know, the peace ceremony is an important ceremony," and dude, what?
There's no shit. Okay, yeah. Did anything?
Yeah, and the captain showed how much of a dickhole he was at the very beginning, saying like, "Yeah, you only want me because that other guy's dead." And like all the politicians were looking at him like, "Seriously?"
I mean,
Yeah, you're gonna do this now, buddy?
It's like, just in case the audience doesn't know that the guy is not a very nice guy, we have to remind you alongside of all the exposition.
yeah. I mean, in general, this episode had a lot of just people being assholes for the sake of being assholes.
Yeah.
Just like the captain just being a dick about everything, even though it's completely unnecessary, just to show like, oh, he's an angry guy, and
He's still not over his brother's
the
death.
face burn guy
Burn.
being way over the top with like, yeah, I mean, our leaders, I'm not happy with them, so I'm going to fuck everything up. Like, I mean, you could have introduced like an angry villain military commander guy that isn't that extreme. I mean, going fuck everything up, or however they phrased it. That's just a bit. It just feels a bit cartoony and over the top to me. Like, if you want to have stakes, don't make it so extreme and to the point of being silly.
Well, it's even hard to have stakes when the whole thing like was introduced last episode,
Yeah.
and like really taking a hold this episode, where it's just like, oh, okay, suddenly the rebels are a thing, you know?
Yeah, it just feels like maybe if the rebel group was more fleshed out, then I could have cared about the conflict, but I just really don't, because both the rebel and the captain are just such dull one-dimensional characters, where I just don't care about the entire conflict.
Yeah. That the enemy guy leader, what the fuck ever. I'm not like opposed to characters that are just like, oh yeah, I just like killing people or whatever. I like war; it's fun. I don't mind that exactly, but I also like it if it's like kind of done in this super over the top and like cartoonish way. Like my favorite character of all time pretty much is Kefka from Final Fantasy VI because he's a fucking evil clown that just destroys everything because he's bored. Like that's cool. This guy's not an evil clown, he's just a dude, and I'm like, you're not interesting.
Yeah, he's just a dude, and his personality is that he's angry and wants to have war, and that's it. I mean, that's such a boring antagonist, and then the captain is just an angry dude who's like, oh, Violet Evergarden killed my brother, and that's his personality, and then there's all the other guys who have no personality, and it just all feels like an empty conflict that's just shoved in.
It definitely feels empty in the way this guy was like talking, because I don't know, I hardly even remember his reasons, but it just feels like the author needed an excuse for this conflict to exist and just literally couldn't come up with anything, so it's like, well, they're bored, I guess, and then they try to like, I don't know, justify it with all these explanations, but those itself are boring. It all I always hate using this word, but it really feels kind of forced.
Yeah. It's having a conflict for the sake of having a conflict. It doesn't serve a purpose, which I've said before.
I mean, maybe in the source, like, they had the little teasings of the war happening in the background and made it more relevant to both the captain and to Violet and to, I guess, the auto memoir doll company in a way that it was always in the purview.
Well, to be
but
fair,
in the show, it seems like it's just
Violet is just always at the right place at the right time in
right,
these things,
yeah.
which is also a bit like it really is like they just have a conflict and want to shoehorn Violet in somehow. So it doesn't really feel like Violet's in any way relevant in this, outside of the fact that the captain is Gilbert's brother. She just kind of feels it could have been anyone, and the episode would have played out the same way.
To be fair, though, about what Hab was saying, the war is actually like kind of hinted at. Like they implied for a few episodes that like, oh, there's some sort of movement or something like that. So it didn't come out of nowhere. I'm not exactly saying that makes it better. Like I wasn't like, even when they were talking about this, I'm just like, do we need to go there? Is this going to happen? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was always a thing in the background, but it could have been more developed. I mean, that's just, it just feels kind of like, yeah, it happens because it happens, and because there needs to be a conflict.
Or made more relevant, like maybe Violet or Gilbert starts having some sort of PTSD and starts influencing their work. You know, you can like put it into the narrative in a way that it's significant. You know, not just an aside like, oh, they're probably gonna go to war soon in a couple episodes. You know,
yeah,
that's
I mean, the way it handles Violet is fine in this whole thing, her role, but they could have done more with it, and it just feels kind of empty on that. But it feels empty in general. It just feels, yeah, like there's just not much going on with it, and it's just all very surface level, and we've seen better from this show.
Yeah, we definitely have.
But who knows? Maybe they do something crazy and unexpected and surprising next episode that suddenly makes everything seem better in hindsight.
I get the feeling that perhaps the captain is gonna die, like in a similar scene with the mayor, and somehow he forgives Violet and regrets being a dick to her, something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past the show to try and do that.
Or
though I think it'd be hard to make empathy for the captain, seeing as just he's been a douche this whole entire series.
I mean, a lot of shows do that, where the douche guy suddenly becomes like, oh, he's actually not that bad when he dies. But yeah, maybe the captain dies and he tells Violet like, oh, Gilbert is not dead, or something.
Well, there was that one part in the train where like he noticed the jewel, the emerald, the gem that Violet was wearing, and I got the impression that he kind of saw his brother's eyes in that, and that's why he kind of turned away and got really mad. You know,
I mean,
it was a nice scene where it showed the jewel and it showed his own eyes, which are green like his brother. So,
I mean, he's being a dick towards Violet, but they kind of do it in this way where he's it does kind of seem like he's not completely convinced of what he's saying himself. Like he's saying, like, go fucking die or something, but
it's like, you're just a tool, aren't you?
yeah,
But,
it just feels
more to convince himself. Yeah,
it does kind of feel like he knows that it's not that simple. So maybe they can explore that in a more interesting way and make him feel less of a caricature.
Yeah.
There's definitely still potential to make this work better, this arc. But yeah. I think it'll still always feel a bit shoehorned in and a bit anticlimactic after the episode 8, like, Violet's character arc resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really starting to think that episode really should have been the finale. I think the only reason why they wouldn't is just because, I don't know, they got this war shit in the way, and I guess chronologically that episode just makes more sense where it is, but yeah. In terms of quality, that's the best episode so far. Although, for the record, I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast, but last week I said I didn't watch episode 10, and I would watch episode 10 in the next week. I didn't watch episode 10.
It's fine.
So, I thought you were going to keep that to yourself, but nah,
it's
had to drop it in, by the way.
I must be honest with everyone.
You're lucky. You're lucky that it's just an individual episode, so you don't miss any really important information. But you're also unlucky because it's one of the better ones. So
yeah,
I did hear it was good, but yeah, that's also kind of the meme of this. It's just like, yeah, I'll just watch episode 10. What's gonna change?
Hopefully, by the last episode, you'll be, hey guys, I watched episode 10. It was great.
Let's not get our hopes up now. I guess maybe just one last comment that I have is that the visuals were like okay this episode. I complained about the flashback the episodes being too dark with the filters. This time they actually kind of fixed that. They didn't have the filters this time, so it looked okay.
Well,
and there was a really cool time lapse at around 7 minutes and 50 seconds.
Well, what really annoyed me about the visuals was that the pilot guy who's piloting the plane, his face basically moved like a Muppet or something when he was talking, where his mouth just kind of opened and closed, and while his mouth opened and closed, his head bobbed like up and down. Like it didn't look natural in any way, and it just really annoyed me while watching.
That's weird.
If you look back, his face is like he bobs like up and down when he talks. Like it's like his jaw is locked in place and the top of his head just moves when he talks. It looks really weird. So yeah, there's that. It just looked weird.
Oh, the other thing is that I appreciate that pirate wench was actually wearing clothes this time.
Yeah, but you could still see her cleavage.
Pirate?
What is that? Even though she was wearing a trench coat.
What pirate?
I call
Coletta?
Okay, why is she a pirate?
It's just a joke Shaw made in episode 1, and that's just
pirate wench.
I've just gone with it.
I just call her Egyptian hoe.
Egyptian hoe, Jesus Christ.
Egyptian. So, I mean, is that a good thing though? That she's more covered up?
I appreciate her low cut trench coat. That was nice.
Well, that's her character,
That is her character. I appreciate that honesty. Do you guys have anything else to say? Or should we wrap this up?
Well, perhaps that the interaction between that Egyptian hoe, Catleya, and the captain was much less melodramatic than I expected. I really expected like something like she slapped him in the face or something.
Yeah,
I guess it's still just kind of annoyed me though that like I don't know he just felt the need to talk shit about her openly right there, and then they're all just like, oh, but Violet's really cool. She does this and this, and I'm like, all right, guys.
Yeah, it's
Violet's cool.
Well,
when you haven't.
I think that she. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, thanks. Well, there was that. I mean, you have to remember that she is a doll herself, and that when she realized who he was, when he realized that he was the Major's or Violet Superior's brother, she kind of reeled back a little bit. So I think she kind of realized that he kind of had these emotions,
Yes.
complex emotions relating to him.
Yes.
Which I'm just thinking about this post watching the episode right now when we were talking about it. But it makes sense that she wouldn't go crazy and just slap the guy in a super melodramatic way, but more, take it back and be like, oh, okay, you might have your own misgivings about the situation.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fair. So I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I was checking something else. I'm really fucking busy today. That's why this episode's actually coming out early.
Hey.
Earlier than most of the other ones in the last few weeks. Thank you guys for coming on short notice yet again.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure,
no problem.
Yeah, Collapse especially. You are all great. I'd love to have you on again. And thank you, listener, viewer, whichever. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.